in the chat room, this music's brilliant, isn't it? Just you can get it in the description box below. I know you guys love my tunes. Joe's loving it. He's absolutely loving it. And for anyone new coming to the stream, you'll see that Joe Joseph, who is here with me, he has taken full advantage of his Popeye emoji. And the way you get your own Popeye emoji is if you hit the join button, become a member of the channel. You get members only live streams starting this month. You get Popeye emojis. You get Elon Musk emojis. You get it all going on here. But before we go to Joe, Scott, and the guys for INFOMANIA, let's kick back. These tunes are brilliant, guys. If I don't put Joe out of his misery soon, there's a good chance he's going to leave this live stream. How you doing, guys? How goes it, boys? How goes it? On the day of WrestleMania, we are doing...
Is that right? Is it truly the day of WrestleMania?
It is, and we've got our very own star-studded WWE lineup. Just look at that, folks. We have got Popeye in the house, and later on in the main event, Popeye will be teaming up with his sort of twin brother, Joe Joseph. They're sporting some cracking hairdos there, boys.
What the hell did you do to us anyway?
Dude, what? I only take half the blame.
Dude, that's the sequel to Brokeback Mountain right there. First of
all, if we were a tag team, like wrestling team, we'd be the best effing tag team there was.
No
right?
shit.
'Cause we'd actually be punching people in the face and shit.
Right. There'd be none of that. I'd be like slitting throats and whatnot.
I don't know. You don't like
this fake bullshit. Bring a baseball bat into the ring and just start knocking people clean the fuck out.
If there was like
a nail bat, what's that doing here?
If there was like two cops in a 70s version of Brokeback Mountain, I think that's you two. Yeah, man.
It's Reach on Ridge. It's the sequel, dude.
Yeah, there's something bad going on there. But how's it going, guys? And of course, Popeye, he's been doubly mysterious tonight. He's on the road. He's on location. We can't tell you where he is because he's a man of mystery. How you doing, dude? And now he just doesn't talk to us. See?
No, yeah. That's how
Master of the Mystic Arts. It's Master of the Mystic Arts, sir. Get it right.
Sure, we'll go with that.
You know that picture we're using for the live stream. He sent that because he's a time traveler, and he traveled all the way back to the
Velociraptor time. Yeah, I got you.
I use the time stone, Scott.
The time stone.
I use the time stone.
You know, Popeye, though. I mean, you can always go to Apex TV, and that they'll have a nice, warm, comfy.
That's Kev's favorite channel.
Oh yeah, love it. Apex TV is what I have with breakfast every day, Joe. You know.
That's where it's at. Yes, Apex TV.
Listen, dude,
where you can time travel and eat Captain Crunch at the same time.
Who knew that the first working time machine would be an Australian YouTube channel? Who knew?
No idea.
Obviously, every single time traveler from the future know because that's where they go. You know. Crazy.
I didn't know, Kev, but now that you've brought that to my attention, I know.
You're looking awfully happy today, Joe.
Oh,
did Ange service you last night or something?
There was none of that. None of that. No. We just had a little house cleaning, and now that the house is clean, we're feeling much better now, aren't we, Kev?
Look at the state of him, Scott. He's brutal, isn't he?
Joe, did you clean all that stuff out of the closet and push it over towards the ice wall?
I guess you could say that limiting factors are no longer limiting. And now it's time to go full steam ahead. That's right. The Weekenders are taking it to the next level. And beards are included, of course, folks. So
no, I've taken mine off.
Support my good man, Kev, because I can't grow a beard to save my life.
I can't, dude. I can't. It got to a certain length, and it just looks ridiculous. I want to look like Popeye. I want to look like Popeye, man. Look at that beard. That's a thing of beauty.
You have to be a Hebrew in order to do that. So you got to be a Jew. If you're a Jew like he is, you can have that Hasid look, but you can't have it. And when you're a Ginzo like me, it doesn't work. And
it was passed down from Charlton Heston. I'm
a mutt to boot because I'm half Irish as well. So, then I'm equally fucked. So there you go. Irish and Italian. It's a combo.
I can grow a beard, but it's like the really creepy neck beard situation, and I can't.
Neckbeard the pirate.
The one,
shiver me timbers.
the one that children seem attracted to, Scott.
I hope not. No.
Something
No.
about those beards.
Hi, kids. I'm Neckbeard, your bus driver. Get on in. It's okay. The windows are supposed to be painted white. Don't worry. Get in.
Free candy. Yes.
Yeah. Free candy and all the video games you could ever want. Come on in.
So today, I guess, Kev, you had sent me a link to a Max Egan stream where he basically dropped the atomic elbow on poor Jim, huh?
Oh.
Poor Jimmy Fetzer got his ass kicked today, didn't he?
He got handed the SmackDown on WrestleMania Day. Yeah, Max, he was on my show the other night, and he's right, he's absolutely, utterly pissed off with this automatic reaction. Every time anything happens, the same characters come crawling out of the woodwork. Everything's fake. Nobody died. Oh, blah, blah, blah.
And Fetzer's one of them. I hate to say it because I like Jim Fetzer a lot, but goddamn, I mean, everything is a freaking conspiracy with that poor guy. And I often wonder, Kev, I'm sorry, Popeye, you know this. Every time there's a mass shooting or something, Fetzer's all over it. Why it's a conspiracy? Yeah,
I respect Jim. I've known him a long time.
Long time.
I've had him on. We've done shows with him and stuff, and I've known him a long time. And like he introduced me to. Like I met a lot of other interesting researchers, like through like knowing Jim. So like he's not. It's hard to say he's not like 100% full of shit, but
no, that's
in the past few years he has really. It kind of disappoints me to see him go down the route, and I have respect for him, but it disappoints me to see him go down the route of everything is fake. And like when Pulse happened, he's like, it didn't happen. And it's like, okay, Jim, that club was there. It wasn't an abandoned building. Oh, the club's not even real. No, Pulse nightclub was totally real. Trust me, I live in the suburbs of Orlando currently. So I know, I've lived up here. I was here for a while when it happened. Yes, I lived here when it happened. And we went down and drove around and like to see what was going on. And I mean, the Pulse is still there. You can go by and they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. They want to turn it into some sort of memorial. So the building is still there. They didn't knock it down. They didn't, take it out. And look, Sandy Hook there was a lot of shady shit that happened with that event. Okay. But that was also the event that the term went from false flag to hoax, and it got mixed together. And now false flag means, you think there's crisis actors. And we talked about this on shows before when I was still doing radio on the regular. And I talked about this. And what did I say? I said, this is bad because it's setting a precedent that now pretty soon, the word hoax and the term false flag are going to be convoluted and put together, and now everything is going to be made to be. It's kind of like mixing everything into the word conspiracy. So now conspiracy doesn't. It's a real word. It has its own definition, and people get charged with it by law on the regular. Yet it's got this negative connotation where people think it means fake things. It means fake stuff, right? Well, now that's what's happening with false flag. People think, you mean crisis actors and all this other shit. And unfortunately, he got caught up in a lot of that. And I've tried to steer Jim away from other stuff in the past. And as long as I've known him, I don't think Jim's a disinfo agent, but I do think sometimes he gets led astray. And
I think it's just senility almost.
Well, and he's, Jim's getting older, so maybe there's that. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him because I've known Jim.
Not at all.
No, not at all. I've had him on my show as well, Popeye.
Down the route of everything is fake. Come on. I mean, look, again, using Pulse as an example, that shit was real, dude. Like, it happened. And newsflash, just so people understand, okay, a false flag means it's an old naval term. So, like, if Joe would understand this. British, right? Say when we were fighting the British, we had privateers. right? And the privateers are basically paid pirates by the government. So they would go out and they wanted to attack a British merchant vessel. Well, they're not just going to roll up with the American flag, because the British merchant vessel is going to be like, oh shit, and they're going to start, aiming their cannons, perhaps, maybe, at least get their guys ready to repel boarders, right? Well, in order to get the element of surprise, the naval vessels, the privateers, sometimes the British Navy would do this as well. Our Navy would do this, right? This is a naval practice of naval warfare. And these ships would sail up close, flying a British flag. And when they got close enough, they would then drop the flag and hoist up whatever flag of whatever nation that they were working for. If they were pirates, they would hoist up the Jolly Roger. Okay? That's how they did it. So that's where the term false flag comes from. It means like pretending to be someone you're not, to do something in order to shift the blame onto somebody else. Right, and then there are different reasons why you'd want to do that. Look, a perfect example of a false flag, Joe, would be like
Joe wouldn't know. Joe wouldn't know, dude. Joe wouldn't know.
As Native Americans
Joe's
during
sleeping. Popeye, you've sent Joe to sleep. He's gone to sleep on you, dude.
Shit! No, I'm fine. I'm right here. Huh? What?
Eat it,
asshole.
Eat it.
Oh, you're in one of these moods today. Nah, but
totally right.
You have to look. You have to have long-winded, we have to explain all this, because if we don't, the problem is there's a lot of new people getting into this. Kev, you have a lot of new listeners that have maybe just woken up recently. They haven't been awake for 10 or 15 years, and they don't understand the nuance of everything. And the problem is, if you only scrape the top 2 or 3% of information and you don't do the deeper research or have a deeper understanding of the bigger picture, down the road, shit like, this with Fetzer, it muddies the water and it makes people not understand what the term actually means. So in order to combat this, we cannot go forward at all until we go backward a little bit and try to throw the basics out again, because that's all been retarded. And I don't mean that like, oh, you're being retarded. I mean like in the literal dictionary definition of the word, retarded, as in slowed down. And that's how they've gotten everybody into the whole orange man good, orange man bad thing. They got everybody back to base level thinking. And I gotta tell you, it's impressive to watch them work their magic, dude. I mean, it really is. Like, they definitely have the younger generations that understand the internet in on this now. Remember when they first laughed? They didn't even know we used to joke around because they didn't know what the fucking internet was. They were like, "Oh, it's a bunch of tubes." They don't think like that anymore. The people that there are smarter people that are more in tune with how powerful the internet is. Why do you think there's so much censorship all of a sudden? Why do you think you had to go through what you went through with your channel, dude? Where they fucked with you and they made you go through all that bullshit just to get your channel back, which was unbelievable. And I'm going through, and I know because I'm going through my own bullshit with them. Right? They're destroying my channel.
Scotty, I know you're going to jump in here, but I mean, Max Egan, that's the reason I got him on the show. All these videos about everything being fake and everything else, they're still on YouTube. Okay, they're shadow banned. You have to go and know where to look for them. But Max Egan's, which was telling you that people did die, it was a real event. Bit of a black op at the same time, pointing out obvious anomalies in the video, but they take his video down. You see, they're happy for everything's fake to be on there, Scott. But the minute you start pointing out other stuff, like what's really happening, you're gone quicker than shit off a shovel.
Yeah, if you start pointing out the real inconsistencies that occurred in a real event that happened, then all of a sudden you're hitting a nerve that, they don't want you to be touching upon. And, going back to this whole thing with Jim Fetzer and all that, and these people that have been claiming that everything is fake, I think a lot of that also has to do with the fact that, maybe they did point out some inconsistencies and some weird stuff that has happened in the past, and they became known for that. Like Fetzer became known for being that guy to point that out. And so now it's almost like maybe he feels obligated in a way to.
Well, Scott, I was going to say when you
call everything
when you've got a series of books,
because people expect that from him.
Yeah, when you've got a series of books as well that's called "Nobody Died at," then you're always looking for the next event to come along to keep your series of books rolling.
Yeah, you know. So I mean, that's pretty much his shtick now. I mean, that's kind of his identity in a way. Everyone who follows him expects him to come out when an event happens and to say it's fake or a hoax or something. Yeah. So, you know, he's kind of hitched that wagon onto himself, and it's hard to back out of that thing once you've gotten in so deep into that. You know what I mean? He just feels like he needs to continue on with that, pushing that whole thing every time an event happens.
No, you're spot on.
That's part of it.
You know, when I watched this debate today, Joe, this is the thing, right? You know, they're meant to be debating back and forth. And Max was showing Jim Fetzer evidence, a bullet hole in the windscreen being one of them. Somebody running down an alley being another piece of evidence. And instead of looking at it and, you know, trying to figure out, factor in how it all kind of plays together, just sat there, absolutely refusing even to look at any of the evidence to begin with and just say, no, Max, you're talking crap. You know, that's classic confirmation bias. Don't show me anything that's going to ruin my thing. You know? It's
the same thing as Flat Earth. Flat Earth does the same shit. You know, all of a sudden, we buy this $20,000 gyro, laser ring gyro. It's going to prove that the Earth is flat. And they do it. Oh, shit. This ain't going to work. We can't possibly accept the fact that this thing proves the Earth is like the hemorrhoid shaped. You know, so can't have that. No. Oh, let's try the lasers. Just like what's his name? Mike Myers and shit. Let's try the lasers, if you will. Yeah, did that fucking work? Nope, that didn't work. Guess the Earth's still shaped like a fucking hemorrhoid. No, can't be. So guess what happens? You know, confirmation bias. They freaking have to back into their little theory. Why? Because they're living. What they do to earn a living all is centered around this idea, this concept.
And you got to remember, even when this gyro.
Ange just said this, Scotty. I think it's pretty interesting too. You know, look at those that predict the second coming. Right? They all do it right on certain date, and they make a fortune on it, and then all of a sudden they scurry off. We're all here, and they're rich.
Yeah. And you know, like when they did the thing with the gyro and all that, and it proved that the Earth was round. What did they say? They said, well, we don't accept the results. You know,
how crazy is that?
And it's kind of like the Jim Fetzer thing, right? You know, Max Egan presented information to him, and he just was kind of like, I don't accept that. You know, he just, acted like that it wasn't relevant, even though evidence was produced. You know, you just put the blinders on and you keep pushing your thing, you know. So it's pretty much the same thing.
And you know, fake
it's things. Unfortunate that you have to see that though, because like you guys said, I mean, Jim Fetzer, he brought a lot of really good information to the table. You know, unbelievable information. And now, you know, it's just kind of sad to see him falling into that. Just falling into that thing of just saying everything is fake and everything's a hoax. And
well, now that we've definitely demonetized this stream, if anyone wants to tip the stream, please go to the PayPal link in the description. You can use Super Chat, because I don't know how many times we triggered the algorithm there, boys, but you know it must be glowing.
How many times did we trigger the algorithm? On doing what? Let me ask you that.
Just saying the word New Zealand is enough nowadays. You know, FF.
Let the record show
in New Zealand. In New Zealand, this stream could possibly be deemed criminal.
Yep, it would be. Yep.
But I'm talking about all the wonderful ways you can go to New Zealand as a possible tourist. You know, go play the didgeridoo.
Joe, I think you'll find the didgeridoo probably the national instrument of Australia. Yeah, I know you people outside of America can't find like states that are next to your own, but it's a big round planet, right? Not, you know, it's not just America in the middle.
Ange says I'm going to have to play the didgeridoo while we're having lovin's. What the hell's that?
No, Ange plays the didgeridoo. There you go.
Yeah.
So, talking of, let's shift gears. Shift gears. We've got heaps of stories here, right? But the one most apt to this, what we're talking about now, I suppose, would be this one here. and it says young American men are having less sex than ever before. Is that what's wrong with your country, guys? He's not getting your rocks off
just
enough.
America, Kev? Let me ask you something. Is it just America?
No, there's a famine on the west coast of Scotland as well. I am definitely experiencing a famine.
I think this is something you're seeing just in Western society and Western culture in general.
What's wrong with people, man? What is wrong with them?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the ease of access of porn, right? Joe's talked about this. I just think that there's a lot of factors that have basically stunted the drive to copulate, I guess you could say.
Could be. Yeah,
I mean, it's not just porn. It's all kinds of different.
No, it's like
social
chemtrails,
engineering.
Right?
It's them telling people that it's bad to have kids.
Exactly.
It's all of this stuff.
There's certainly an effort out there, I think, centered around the fact that they don't want procreation to happen near at the clip that it's happened historically, right? So, and it's not. So, if you take a look at the first world countries, the birth rates have plummeted, especially over the last 30 years, to where I don't think there's a single first world country with a birth rate above 2. And it's got to be above 2 in order to just sustain a population. Right now, the thing that's sustaining population in the United States is immigration. If it wasn't for immigration, our birth rates would be through the floor, much like Europe is. If you take a look at Europe, it's like 1.8. It's crisis level. If you go out east, to say Asia, China, into the islands like Thailand, it's a national emergency. They've got billboards out there actually begging people to procreate. In Japan,
Russia's paying people.
They're paying people, but in Japan and China, there used to be a limit on how many children they could have. They had to lift that, and now they're actually incentivizing childbirth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable how in just one generation, the tide has turned and everything's out of whack. Yeah. And it's all because of these campaigns that Scotty was talking about. You've got, these public awareness campaigns. Well, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. You got Planned Parenthood or versions thereof all throughout the world that take these people out, that basically these children that would have been brought in the world now are not. And then you have the porn industry. Porn does a lot of damage there.
Not in the UK anymore.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, there's so many different factors, like a la chemtrails. Chemtrails have so many different purposes to them. Well, I mean, the depopulation agenda, it has so many different ways about it. It's hard to kind of, you can't pin it on one thing,
No, because, I mean, you got the chemtrails, you've got our diet, you've got all of the stuff that, the chemicals that we're consuming, and it's just it's a shit show mixture, of all kinds of things that's causing this.
In India, Kev, India and China, they've had to lock their wives up because, for years and years and years, they threw the girls away.
Yeah.
Because there was no honor in having daughters. So now they've got a severe crisis over there because they don't have enough women. You've got a real situation where some of it's cultural, some of it's eugenics, some of it is like a nature of the evolution of the internet and evolution of technology. What didn't we talk about? Digisexuals, Kev? Digisexuals? Yeah. What? Are you crazy?
The rise of the digisexual. Yeah, exactly. But I think there's a general consensus coming from the chat room as well that there might be a lot to do with the soy intake around the planet as well. Far too many soy boys kicking about right now.
Soy boys.
That's a possibility. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it too. And so here's the thing, and this is where people start getting demonized as being xenophobic or whatever, especially there in Europe. when you point out the fact that a lot of these Muslim immigrants that are coming in, their whole goal is to procreate and to outnumber the population, the indigenous population of Europe. And even, these radical Islamicists themselves said that is the goal. They said, we're going to go into Europe. We're going to have shit tons of kids, lots of kids, and we're going to eventually outnumber them. And, at that point, then it'll be a Muslim caliphate at some point, because they're not having kids, right? Europeans aren't having kids. Western society isn't having kids, but
Popeye's not having kids.
They are all about having kids. They're about, conquest through procreation, and that's their goal. And you get called an Islamophobe or
that's what happens when you try to make
bringing that up. But that is the actual fact of the situation.
Well,
so yeah,
all of us are getting none by the sounds of it. Popeye, I hope you didn't violate that dinosaur in the picture with you there, dude. Did the dinosaur make it away okay? Was it unscathed?
No.
Oh, he's back.
I violated it. Hardcore.
So what do you make of this? What do you make of this news, Popeye? That American men, they just ain't getting enough loving, man. It's not happening, dude.
Well, okay, that's all part of the plan. Just gonna say again, thanks for paying attention. For all those that paid attention years ago.
Well,
just saying. I mean, I know. I sometimes I kind of sound like I'm like fucking told you so, but it kind of is like told you so. Just saying.
Yes. Well, you know what happens? See, when things get really bad, we could take a leaf out of the Japanese book, because they're not having any problems by the looks of it. In fact, on contraire, because they are having their annual penis festival in Japan. And guess what? It's more than just been about giant schlongs, guys. Yes. Found this.
I would hope so.
Found this story today, and it says an event in Kawasaki, Japan, aroused lots of interest last weekend. Of course, that's to be expected with the festival dedicated to the male sex organ. Yes, we're celebrated somewhere, guys. We're still accepted somewhere. Awesome. Male toxicity rules. And it says here, Kanamara Matsuri, a.k.a. Festival of the Steel Phallus, has been a spring tradition since 1969. And basically, to cut a long story short, what these people are celebrating, or what they used to do, is go to this giant phallic symbol and pray. Sex workers would pray that they would not get any STDs. Well, this festival is still going strong today, and as you can see from some of the photographs that you're looking at on the screen here, absolutely hilarious.
It is the complete opposite of the pussy hat.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. This is amazing. Can you imagine holding a festival like this in front of a bunch of SJWs and feminists? They would fucking lose their shit.
Bring that to San Francisco and see how it goes.
Yeah.
I bet you. Well, I mean, it's either going to be embraced or totally and completely destroyed. And probably it depends on who brings it forward, to be honest with you. But yeah,
you are going to trigger an entire.
To me is almost. It's almost as offensive as the killing of the dolphins that they do in that one cove. You know how they do that every spring or something like that. They lure the dolphins into the cove and just have a complete onslaught of dolphin death.
Now that there is worse than any pussy hat, boys. That there.
Oh my God! Look at that. That is just awful.
Yeah. What can you say to that? Hey, new subscriber, awesome stuff.
Hey, what do you say to that? It's a giant dick fest.
Yes, pretty much. That pretty much sums it up.
But leave it to Japan, because I'll tell you what, Japan seems to be at the forefront of debauchery. If there is debauchery to be done, Japan is normally the ones that set the trend.
Well, they're the ones that are right at the front of the whole like digi-sex with the sex
That's
robots.
the Germans. Wasn't it them and the Germans that said, "Oh yes, I think that's attractive if we just piss on each other." Oh, you take a dump on your face. Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah,
maybe that's the reason they allied with each other during World War II. They just shared a common interest.
Yeah, they shit on each other's faces.
Dear Lord, what has happened here? What have we become? We're worse than animals.
You put it up there, dude. It's a fucking dick parade.
It's
the hell?
Literal sausage fest, man.
Literal. So it says this festival is partly inspired by a legend about a sharp-toothed demon who planted itself in a woman's vagina after she rejected him. Well, you see, it all makes sense now, doesn't it? You see?
Yeah.
The demon,
Yeah, no doubt.
wait for it, the demon repeatedly bit the penis of the woman's husband until she paid a blacksmith to create a steel phallus hard enough to break the demon's teeth. Yes.
Wow.
I don't get it.
Wowzers. Well, Joe,
Dick Richards in the chat room says Germans eat the poo too.
according to that report, you're not alone in America. It's not just you not getting it, Joe, so don't worry about it.
No, it seems to be epidemic.
Yeah. So,
Dude, okay, since you brought this up, remember the video I made you guys watch on Hangar 18 years ago? The guy that was swimming in the bathtub, or it looked like a bathtub of shit, but it was like a septic tank. He was in there, he cut like a hole in it basically, and he was swimming around in nothing but like a thong and goggles.
unfortunately, yeah, I had removed that mental image from my head until now, Popeye. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome for
Thanks
bringing
a
it
lot.
back. I'm glad I could re-traumatize you, Kev.
What's wrong
Triggered.
with people? What the hell is wrong with people, dude? I mean, what possesses you to do that? Anyone to do that?
You know, the Roman Empire went through the same thing. They're on their way down. Society just got more out of control, and there was more debauchery. And that's what happens to societies, dude. And right now, I mean, it's done on purpose. Look, maybe in the past it wasn't engineered on purpose. It was a manifestation of, what was going on at the time. But the people now that run things and that manipulate societies, they've learned from previous mistakes of previous cultures and societies. So don't be mistaken. This downfall that our society is in, this rapid spiral, is being done on purpose. It's a controlled demolition, if you will.
Yeah, no doubt. Maybe it could be tied to this, Kev. I was kind of looking around and I found a study. Studyfinds.org says that the average person, believe it or not, has only 4 hours and 26 minutes of free time per week. Maybe people are just tired. So how much free time do you get to enjoy each week? If you're like most people, it's hardly enough to be excited about. A new study finds that the average American adult logs just 4 hours and 26 minutes of free time to themselves in a given week. And if that amount seems high, you're also in good company, because 4 out of 10 people say they even get less free time than that total, incredibly. And this was a survey of 2,000 adults commissioned by the tax prep service H&R Block, who also found that the little bit of free time leaves the average person with 14 undone items on their to-do list. I guess a lot of that has to do with sex too. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, look at how many people now are having to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and they're just slaving throughout the week. Yeah. And then by the time they get home, they don't feel. They just are like, man, I'm going to bed. I mean, I'm beat. I'm tired. And no, I think that has a lot to do with it, Joe. I think you're correct on that. I just think that people are just worked too hard, and working for their slave wage, and they just don't have the time to do anything, like time. Procreate basically, or just just too tired to do anything.
The powers that be must be loving this, guys, because this all plays into a bigger depopulation thing, it's bigger picture stuff. They must be sitting giving it, whoa! And now if we can get into the minds of children in school and confuse them about whether they're boys or girls, mission complete.
which they've already done
All
a
right.
very, very good job of, right, Popeye?
Well, I'm going to bring this up again from a couple weeks ago. Quote, "The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth." And again, Neo says, "What truth?" And Morpheus says that you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, into a prison that you cannot taste or see or touch. A prison for your mind. That's what all of this is. It keeps everybody busy and arguing over stupid shit. And at the same time, it brings down the basics that everybody already agreed upon as a society and we all understand. It brings all of that into question, and then you get people, and there's literally people on the quote-unquote left that are arguing to bring back segregation.
Isn't that unbelievable, dude? They're crying for it.
Are you people are fucking stupid. Like, you're being unbelievably racist, you fucking retards. But see, they think what they're doing is right, and they will push on through with it because that's what they've been programmed. We are biological computers, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
so what you see is their computer. You see their code running the machine. So we have to change the code. That was the whole point of me doing my radio show.
Is that right?
Try to
you're recoding humanity,
some sort of positive change into the Matrix, and it was working. Look, everything that we all did was working, and I'll tell you why I know it was working, because they had to pull off all the shit that they've pulled off in the past few years with all this crazy bullshit to try to get everybody back into the Matrix. They had to go through all of this. They had to put Donald Trump up as the president and let him win. I mean, come on. He really didn't fucking win, right? That whole I keep saying this. I know everybody thinks I'm fucking nuts, but he was put in there on purpose to get the gun-toting Second Amendment people on board.
And he did. Look at him. I mean, he even got Jonesy on board. Now Jonesy's talking about
everybody's
talking about leftists and all this stuff, right? I mean, he's speaking the same language that he railed against for almost 20 years. Look at this, April 1972. Let's just go back before Matrix was ever even thought about. Chester M. Pierce, in his keynote address to the Association for Childhood Education International. Chester M. Pierce, professor of education and psychiatry in the Faculty of Medicine at Harvard University, claims this. He proclaims, every child in America entering school at the age of 5 is insane because he comes to school with certain allegiances towards our founding fathers, towards his parents, and towards a belief in a supernatural being. It's up to you, teachers, to make all these sick children well by creating the international child of the future. Yeah, it's assholes like that have brought about the sick, twisted world we live in now. That and the tickle trunk, Popeye. And the tickle trunk.
Let me jump in here because Wade, the Canadian, in the chat room, I've just given you a wrench, Wade. I thought I'd done it a while ago, but great comment here. He says, my teacher 30 years ago, think of that, folks, 30 years ago, told us the United Nations were going to depopulate the earth, and by the time I am 50, it will be well underway. Gender confusion, BPA, synthetic hormone. Well, whoever your teacher was had their finger truly on the pulse 30 years ago.
I had a teacher about 25 years ago, a history teacher in middle school, teaching us that bankers bankrolled both sides of World War I and major conflicts around the world. And basically he was awake, thinking back to a lot of the stuff he told us. And it's amazing because I remember a lot of the things he said. So he must have been a pretty good teacher, for a lot of his information to still stick in my head. But, he was talking about, these players. He was talking about like the Rothschilds and stuff, bankrolling, both sides of the conflict and both sides of conflicts so that they would end up, being the winners in the end. It didn't matter who lost. The Rothschilds and the bankers, they won. And so it's pretty interesting that you do still I don't know how it is today, but at least back then, you had some teachers that were still awake and knew what was going on. And unfortunately, I don't think we really have that anymore. I mean, I think my brother said that maybe one of his teachers kind of knows, some things, but it's like kind of like stuck in the left-right paradigm kind of situation. But it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the education system has devolved into the state it's in right now.
Big time. I'm just sitting here giggling as well. The chat room is absolutely brilliant. Sometimes I wish we had the chat read out, one of these like AI voices. But at the same time, guys, I've got my little brother, my kid brother, on the phone here messaging me. My mother is highly confused right now because usually they watch it on the phone as you do, but he's cast it onto his big screen TV. And I've said for years, my ma, she needs to move over to America and join the Amish because technology, it's absolutely leaving her behind. So she's in a state of confusion.
It's blowing her mind right now.
Yeah, she's like that. How can it be on your phone? Be on the what the hell? Mom, if you just want to give a super chat, maybe I'll be able to explain it to you just a little bit later.
Damn, Ev's trying to shake down your mom.
Listen, how can you expect to shake down members of the public if you won't shake down your own family? Come on, dude.
Nice. He's absolutely right. Just like we've been shook down by these asshats for so many years. I mean, this is something that's gone on for a very, very long time. One of the books on Popeye's bookshelf is Tragedy and Hope.
Oh, brilliant.
And it's a long read. It's dry as shit. But I'll tell you what, Carroll Quigley, he kind of nailed it. And this is a quote from him. I want to say this because anybody,
he's their unofficial historian.
Yeah. Anybody that doubts the things that we say, you needn't look no further or read no other book than that. That, and I think War is a Racket by Smedley Butler. But he said this. He says, there does exist and has existed for a generation an international network which operates to some extent in the way the radical right believes the communists act, meaning false left-right paradigm. They all think they act the same because they all act the same. In fact, he says this network, which we may identify as the round table groups, have no aversion to cooperating with the communists or any other groups, and frequently does so. He says, I know the operations of this network because I've studied it for 20 years and was permitted for 2 years in the early 1960s to examine its papers and secret records. I have no aversion to it or to most of its aims and have for much of my life been close to it and to many of its instruments. He says, I've objected both in the past and recently to a few of its policies, but in general, my chief difference of opinion is that it wishes to remain unknown. And I believe its role in history is significant enough to be known. And I believe he's absolutely right, because if you take a look at times in history, the times in history he's talking about, well, they're pretty significant indeed. And of course, I'm talking about, say, the Bolshevik Revolution. A lot of people think, wow, the Bolshevik Revolution, why, that was a bunch of Russians that got together to overthrow the oppressive czar, when in fact that really wasn't the case at all. Now, you may have had some people in there that got swept up in it. Absolutely. You do tend to have that from time to time. But even Lenin himself said this. He said there also exists another alliance. He said, this is 1917. At first glance, a strange one, a surprising one. But if you think about it, in fact, one which is well-grounded and easy to understand. He says, this is the alliance between our communist leaders and your capitalists, meaning, what they had going on in Russia and the financiers of that revolution in New York City.
And even talk about the banks bankrolling both sides of
yes. And even Winston Churchill in 1920, Winston Churchill, he says the same thing. See, folks, this is the interesting thing about this, because if you go through history, prominent voices in history will tell you the story themselves if you just pay attention to it. So Churchill said this in 1920. He says, from the days of I can't do Winston Churchill shit. He said, from the days of Spartacus Weishaupt to those of Karl Marx, to those of Trotsky, Bella Kuhn, Rosa Luxemburg, and Emma Goldman, This worldwide conspiracy for the overthrow of civilization and for the reconstitution of society on the basis of arrested development, of envious malevolence, and impossible equality has been steadily growing. It played a recognizable role in the tragedy of the French Revolution. It's been the mainspring of every subversive movement during the 19th century and 20th and 21st. And now, at last, this band of extraordinary personalities from the underworld of the great cities of Europe and America have gripped the Russian people by the hair on their heads, and have become practically the undisputed masters of that enormous empire. And of course, he's talking about the Bolshevik Revolution. So typically when you see Arab Spring, when you see all of these sprung up revolutions, if you will, they may start organically or grassroots, but they are quickly co-opted and used to get an agenda pushed. And in this case, in the Russian Revolution, same thing. You had Stalin installed very soon after, and, the rest is history. And we can take a look every time you have a revolution. Look what happened in Libya, guys. Libya, you have somebody that wanted to basically take Africa and put them on their own monetary standard. And when he did that and he starts pushing that agenda, what happens? He's vilified and he's killed. And now Africa's in chaos.
He got ass raped live on camera with a blade, dude. And yet this is the same people who a large swathe of our community don't believe would kill 50 people at an event in New Zealand. Yet they're willing to show the killing of a sitting president, live on TV. They're psychopaths, utter psychopaths.
We have to go back to that for a second, by the way, because since I had a disconnect for a minute, I want to go back to that for a second because there's another point on that whole thing. When people say, "Oh, they didn't kill anybody," okay, get real, right? The whole point of them pulling off one of these events is to create mass chaos and carnage and scare the ever-loving shit out of the general public. And in order to create genuine fear and angst like that, you need to actually kill people, okay? You need to actually go do the evil deeds that you're being blamed for, or that you're trying to convince people happened, or whatever the case may be. You actually need to perpetrate the evil and the death, because that's what sells it. You see, that's how they get away with things, because people will lose all logic and all semblance of logic and go all emotional if they see a fellow human die, if they see a child die, they see someone grieving the loss of their wife or their husband or their mother or their father or their son or their daughter. Okay? They manipulate them. That's how they manipulate everybody. That's what all of this is. So yeah, they have to kill people to do that. It's much easier for them to kill 1,000 people. What did the big new Brzezinski say at the Council on Foreign Relations? It was like 2006, 2007, around there, maybe even 2008. Look it up on YouTube. Okay, they had this epiphany, and he realized what was coming, and he said that in the past it was easier to control 1 million people, people than it was to kill 1 million people. But now, because of modern technology and the mastery of technology that they have, it's far easier to kill 1 million people than it is to control 1 million people. Because with their technology that they can kill more people, mankind has also now become politically awakened. He actually says, for the first time in human history, mankind has become politically awakened. And that poses a huge threat to their agenda. So it's no longer easier to control everybody through different means like mind control, manipulation of society, to a degree that still does work. You're seeing it happen. But on the longer, for the long game, it doesn't work. It only works in the short term. The long term, it's easier just to kill people. And he admitted that, and it was like 10 years ago that he said this. 10, 12 years ago that he said this. So, I mean, if he was saying this 10, 12 years ago, you don't think that's what they're practicing today? They are. And Trump is a showpiece. He's a muppet. Yeah. He doesn't really run shit. They put him in there to get the Second Amendment crowd and everybody back into the fold.
Think about that.
That's
Think
why.
about that. Before Trump was elected, there was everybody in the independent media was really, here's a great example of things that they were fighting against. Police brutality, right? Police brutality still continues today, very much so. You also
But
have
nobody gives a shit, Joe.
civil asset forfeiture. Now all of a sudden, what? Oh, well, yeah, well, it's okay. We got to support the cops. We got to support the boys in blue. That's like, what the fuck? What happened?
Yeah, what happened to people bitching about like
Am I in a
babies getting
Twilight Zone?
flashbags in their cribs?
Yeah,
Nobody
right.
gives a shit anymore.
Flashbang
Now
the
it's like,
cribs.
woo-hoo. Dude, I've heard the same people that used to like rail against the police state are now like, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, wait, what?
Exactly. It's like, what?
Are you kidding me right now? Are you the same person that like I used to stand side by side with and like give out DVDs with about the police state, and now you're like, woo, police state because your guy is in, so you feel you won?
Yeah, I mean, it's
manipulation, bro. That's what it is.
Yeah, the same people that were railing against the police state and all of that now are now, like they should arrest Antifa and put them in FEMA camps, and they're all for, the police cracking down on protests and stuff. And, I'm not a fan of Antifa and all of that, but still, I mean, it just shows the absolute insane 180 that they managed to get everybody to do.
Dude, when I heard people calling for FEMA camps for people I agree with you, Scott. Antifa, like they're just as repugnant as like the uber white supremacists, which there aren't that many of it. They're like the oogity boogity man. But yes, the uber white, the really idiot, like hardcore neo-Nazi or super asshole white supremacist, whatever. Yeah, fine, sure. Those people are repugnant, but like so are the people that engage in this Antifa bullshit. And it's amazing because the people on either side, like even the left, the quote unquote left, right? I remember back in the day
shit,
when,
by the way, I hate that shit.
I hate that
shit.
It's bullshit. It's kabuki theater. But the people that buy into that, the left side of the fake left.
Yeah, you have to use the term, right? Because that's what they identify themselves as. It's
I remember back in the day, dude, when they used to be like, oh, the police state is bad and like the government is overreaching and all, and now they're like, censor this, and the fucking government should come in and close things down, and it's like, whoa,
they managed to get people that are quote unquote on the right, or whatever, the gun loving Second Amendment people that are like, come and take it, but now they're also flying a thin blue line when, hey, genius, who do you think's going to come and take it? So they got them supporting, authoritarian police state tactics, right? Because you see a video of maybe the police beating on some Antifa guy, and you get the people that used to be against the police state, they're like, yeah, beat his ass, show him what's up, So you got that, and then you also got the left has a 180 has been turned on them, and like you said, now they're supporting the end of free speech, and they're supporting the government shutting people down. When wasn't it the left that pioneered free speech, right? At one point, they protested at colleges for free speech.
Dude, we truly live in the upside down.
Yeah, everything has been reversed. Everything has.
We live in the fucking upside down, bro. Stranger Things reference, people, if you haven't seen it. Yeah, or anything. It's a reference to like Through the Looking Glass, or like my show's title, Down the Rabbit Hole, right? All of that. It's almost like we're in another dimension, and I'm telling you. We all woke up after the election, right? And what did we say all the next morning? We were like, it feels like we're in a different timeline. Like there was a weird feeling like something had shifted, okay? Perhaps it was the algorithm. Perhaps it was the matrix, the architect, right? Perhaps it was the architect readjusting for the anomaly. And it did, because look at what happened. I mean, literally, you have people that were like, oh my God, we live in a police state, waking up to all of a sudden they're like, well, if you disagree or if you do this or you do that, you should be put in a FEMA camp. And again, I'm not for Antifa, okay? I'm also not for the supposed opposite end of that. And it, by the way, both are bullshit arguments. Okay, both are put out there to create division and get everybody arguing amongst each other, while the people that really control shit retain control, continue on with their agenda unabated. Because newsflash, who's taking away more from gun owners? Let's have a let's have a quick quiz. Which president's taken away more things from gun owners and on a faster scale? Was it Obama? Or what was it, the tyrant Obama? God, he's such a fucking asshole. God, Obama. Right? Or was it fucking MAGA man Trump? Woo! No, it was Trump. By an executive order,
the man who loves 5G.
They don't even have any fucking evidence that this guy was in the fucking hotel. Oh, we put out videos like a couple of months later of him walking up a back alleyway. Right. Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to talk about an event? You want to talk about an event with some anomalies? Remember me?
Oh, man, yeah,
it was
totally.
me, you, and Joe broke it down on your YouTube channel, Popeye.
Yep.
And we were talking about, how we could hear the gunshots coming from different locations, how it couldn't be a bump stock because if it was a bump stock, the fire rate would be real sporadic, and it was too uniform. So it sounded like very uniform automatic fire, like a belt-fed weapon of some sort. I mean, we took that whole thing apart, and that was used to take the bump stocks, and you notice how that event was completely swept under the rug. I mean, it was only in the news cycle not very long, and then boom.
Not even that, but like, where's the explanation? There, at least on 9/11, eventually they fought it. There was an investigation, and although it was a whitewash, at least they put out some sort of explanation. It was bullshit, but at least they attempted to put out an official explanation with. They found the passport. Look, they didn't find shit except for, first of all, if you looked at the crime scene photos, it looked like that shit was staged. Okay, like he was dead, and then they put the guns around him. Okay, which don't tell me, that doesn't happen. No, right? Only in the fucking movies that happens, right? It doesn't happen in real life at all, ever. Sure, because art doesn't imitate life, right? Oh, only the movie guys come up with these theories. The people that actually do black ops and shit, no, they're not smart enough for that, right? Remember, we're supposed to believe that the government's a bunch of bumbling fucking idiots and that it could never pull this off. But then these are the same people I'm supposed to trust with the nuke code and the authorization to push the button. So which one is it? You can't have it both ways. That's why it's bullshit. And people don't pay attention to that because they're too busy worried about paying the electric bill or getting food on the table for the kids. That's why they keep everybody in the rat race. So you don't pay attention as to what's going on. And when people start to pay attention, then they up the game a little bit. The architect, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, the algorithm, it adjusts for the anomaly. So when it adjusts, you have things like, Ferguson was the breaking point. That was where we switched. That was where if you looked at a set of train tracks, right, and we were going towards more enlightenment and awakening people paying attention, and that's where they shifted it back into this base level of thinking, because it went from police brutality to black versus white in a matter of minutes. And that was the media that did that. That was the mainstream media that did that. And then politicians followed suit, but it was the mainstream media. The media is their tool. And that's why when Trump, rails and says, the media, blah, blah, he's a useful idiot too. Remember, he's being used. So they didn't bring him into a room and say, you're going to do this, you're part of the conspiracy. He was picked for his role. He didn't think he was going to win, and Hillary really thought she was going to win. And it was the exact opposite. And they needed to do that because they needed to drag everybody back into the matrix. They needed to drag everybody back in, get everybody believing their bullshit again. And they did. They did. Now you literally see, I see people that I see people that I know and I've known for years, and we all know, and they say and do things, and it's like, are you people out of your mind? Like, what is wrong with you? And some of it is maybe people trying to make money. Some of it is people trying to stay relevant. I would rather continue to speak the truth, and only a few people know about what I've done. Like, I haven't done a lot of live stuff other than coming on and hanging out with you guys in a couple of years. All my archives are there, and every time someone finds them, they're always like, oh my God, your stuff is great. Thank you so much. I wish I had more time to do more live stuff. But you know what? Like, I'm not going to change the way I look at things or the truth I'm telling you if I know it's truth just because I need new clicks. There's a lot of people that are going back on what they said and they're like, oh, I didn't mean that. Alex Jones, because he's in trouble now, he's getting sued in a court of law. You know, there was video from his testimony and he's like, oh, well, I had a form of psychosis where I thought everything was fake. Like that makes it, and then they use that to attack 9/11 truth too. They'll be like, oh, well, you know, these 9/11 truthers, they're crazy. No, the 9/11 truth movement was started by the victims' family members. Newsflash, for people that don't know that, the 9/11 truth movement started because the victims' family members had questions and the government went, eat it. They didn't even want to have an investigation. The only reason why the 9/11 Commission became a reality is because the families demanded action. And so much so publicly that they had to do something about it. It's the only reason why the 9/11 Commission even happened. And then that shit was a whitewash to begin with. They put Henry Kissinger on the friggin' thing.
It was awful.
Dude, they were even, I mean, the Jersey Girls, there were a bunch of wives whose husbands died in the towers that day. They were like the original, them and a bunch of others were like the original start of what fueled the 9/11 truth movement. And they were outraged when they assigned Kissinger to head the 9/11 Commission. So then they threw him off and put Philip Zelikow in there, who was an even bigger douchebag.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
douchebaggery.
It all makes things like getting back to what we're talking about. Things like with what Jones did in that video deposition. Now they have ammo to be like, oh, see, all you conspiracy people are crazy. That never happened, you know. And you don't see anybody talking about 9/11 anymore. Everybody just accepts that 19 guys with a fucking laptop. You know? Well, everybody just accepts that 19 dudes in a cave in Afghanistan with like, you know, CenturyLink fucking, you know, 0.5 megabyte per year upload speeds at the time, you know, in their secret super Cobra commander bunker in the fucking mountain. Pulled this shit off.
Yeah,
seriously,
right.
It's laughable because they're in one breath they're like, no, they're not that technically sophisticated, but yet they pulled this off they hit 75% of their targets with military precision inside the United States. One of the targets was in the most heavily defended airspace in the fucking world.
Popeye, what does that matter? It happened almost 20 years ago. It's just like the Kennedy assassination. After so much time elapses, people don't give a shit. You know, it's just we've hit that point with 9/11, which is hard. It's hard to really imagine because we lived it. But damn, I mean, now I know what all these people that went through the Kennedy assassination, what they feel. You know, oh man, like Jim Mars, how did he feel when he witnessed that and had to go through it? You know?
Well, I'll tell you what, Joe. 9/11 was my entry point, my waking point.
Yeah, me too.
It was a very personal thing for me, and years later, as I said, like when I first started researching this, at first I was like, "There's absolutely no way that can't be true." And I looked further into it, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And I had to get over my own ego and everything, and I had to accept things, and I had to deal with things that I was still dealing with from the event itself that day. Right. And, you know, I lived like 20 miles from the World Trade Center. You could smell the death in the air for weeks afterwards. It was just absolutely horrible. It was different than seeing it on TV. Living there and being a fireman at the time, it was just a completely different experience for me. So anyway, I look at it years later. I wake up. That was like my doorway into it. I'll never, ever let 9/11 go. I can't tell you how personal I take it, all those firefighters that were killed. I can't tell you how personal I take it, every individual that died that day and that has died since. Because they lied. They've killed more people. Christy Todd Whitman should be in jail. The former governor of New Jersey and the former head of the EPA. I'll say it right now, she should be locked up. Christy Todd Whitman should be locked up as a criminal. She should be locked up and put behind bars. They lock away people for having small amounts of, you know,
I think she's elderly now. They'll never do it.
Well,
you know, it's like
whatever. She's evil. That woman at the head of the EPA told everybody that the air was safe to breathe down there. And I know she was following orders from the Bush administration. She could have said no. And she didn't. And
Totally,
and
yeah.
because of her, more people have died from the illnesses and from the cancers from 9/11 than died on the actual terror attack itself.
Absolutely.
She should be
Dude.
in prison.
Now I
And
want
so
to
should Bush and the rest of them.
I want to shift topics because this is another very important one, and this affects our brother Kev over there in Glasgow and everybody else in the UK. And I just dug this up. This is over on CNET. I've heard you talk about all this, and we've heard about Article 13. And
well, talking about that tomorrow night on the show, I'm going to be joined by the YouTube lawyer. His name is Ian Corzine.
Oh, very good.
And we're going to be talking about this tomorrow on the Kev Baker Show live from 10 p.m. in the UK. This is a guy who knows the ins and outs of the law with Article 13. Yeah. And not just that, but all the changes that are coming to social media, Joe, as this goes into here. You know, over here in the UK and the EU, it's a different ballgame altogether when it comes to online activity.
But it is and it's not, because whatever, it's kind of like the old adage, what goes in California, so goes the rest of the United States. It's the same thing now because we look at it from a global perspective. And a lot of these social media platforms, when faced with fines in one area of the world, they typically go ahead and it applies to everybody, that censorship and everything else, because it bleeds through, it bleeds over. And in this case, CNET's saying that UK, to keep social networks in check with what they call an internet safety regulator. Ah, yes, because that's always the argument, my friends. Peace and safety, peace and safety. By God, it's for your safety. Therefore, it's a good thing. And it says here, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and a whole bunch of smaller platforms, they say will face huge fines if they fail to live up to their, quote, duty of care to internet users.
What the hell is their duty of care?
Well, it says companies that fail to live up to requirements will face huge fines, with senior directors who are proven to have been negligent of their responsibilities being held personally liable. And they may also find access to their sites are blocked. The new measures, designed to make the internet a safer place, were announced jointly by the Home Office and Department of Culture, Media, and Sport. The introduction of the regulator is the central recommendation of the highly anticipated government white paper published early Monday morning in the UK. The regulator will be tasked with ensuring social media companies are tackling a range of online problems, including this, quote, inciting violence and spreading violent content, a la like including terrorist content, encouraging self-harm or suicide, the spread of disinformation and fake news.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. And then we have cyberbullying. We have children accessing inappropriate material and child exploitation and abuse content, as well as applying to the major social networks such as Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The requirements will also have to be met by file hosting sites, online forums, messaging services, and search engines. So basically, everybody.
Yeah.
What a nightmare! What a nightmare to try and enforce that.
Exactly,
You know,
Scott.
and I saw the exact same sort of I would say law being proposed in Australia. You know, they want to hold these social media networks like accountable for things that is going to be an absolute nightmare to
Not only that,
try
but
and
it boils
to try and enforce. You know what I mean?
It boils down to personal responsibility, Scotty, right?
Well, yeah.
What they're doing is they're trying to police personal responsibility. It's up to you not to get involved in that shit. You know, but if you do, why is it Facebook's fault? Because what, they have hard drive space or whatever that these people plant their information on? Is that Facebook's fault? I don't think so. I think the personal responsibility lies with the person that uploaded it to Facebook.
You see, this is
hitting somebody on the road. It's like hitting somebody on the road and then wanting to hold the people who built the road.
Yeah, hold the state accountable for it.
Yeah, this is sounding a lot like it's connected to Article 13. And what you're going to see all these big tech companies and platforms doing is they're going to have to employ and deploy upload filters. Now, the company that stands to make the most money out of upload filters just happens to be Google, because they've got one that's already used by 9,000 businesses, artists, studios around the world. And this is why realistically, you know, you could stop seeing content coming online from specific countries. You know, there's already been talk about Twitter, you know, Google News. They're talking about just pulling out of the EU altogether because of the laws that are happening over here. Because like you guys are saying, it is unpoliceable. And this comes to another story that we were going to get into today. It does link in because PewDiePie, right, world's biggest YouTuber, he's now enemy number one, has been for a while now. But one of the things they're saying here, PewDiePie faces a petition calling for his removal from YouTube due to being a white supremacist platform. When you start to read into this and you watch PewDiePie's reply to this, they're going after him, not specifically or only because some of the content that he's done, which I may add was comedy, but it's the fact that people are leaving comments in his videos. Now, PewDiePie, he's making million after million after million. I don't know how many comments he must get on every single video that he puts up, but Scott, it's impossible to police and to vet every single comment going on there, dude.
There's no way he can vet that. You know what I mean? Unless YouTube offers some kind of a tool that scans comments and, you know, finds like, say somebody put the N-word or something like that, and then just removes the comment. You know what I mean?
I mean, you do have a bit on the back end of YouTube where you can actually employ filters where, like you're saying there, you can have these words. If it says these words, like when you're in the chat room here on a live chat, you'll sometimes see that comments are held. It's because a word has triggered something. So you can set it up, but, you know, you're never going to be able to stop it.
People get around that. They'll use other characters, right? Like sixes to replace G's or something like that. And they'll work around it. They'll find loopholes to the around the system. And there's going to be no way to police that unless you just completely remove the comment section. And even then, that's not PewDiePie's problem. You know, it goes back to what Joe said. That's personal responsibility. He's not responsible for what other people are posting on his videos. And, you know, they've tried to do this thing where they tie him to white supremacy, and
it's all bullshit.
Yeah, this ridiculousness. And, you know, he's just, look, they're trying to use him as the whipping boy in the example, right? Because if they can take down the most subscribed YouTube star, you know, channel on YouTube, then they're going to like kind of set this precedent of it doesn't matter how big you are, you know, you're going to feel the wrath. If I
don't know, Jussie Smollett says that that's not the case. You know, he doesn't feel the wrath. As a matter of fact, he'll probably be celebrated for doing what he did. But I want to bring this up too, because I think this is a very important thing to highlight, and it's a personal thing for me and my wife, because our lives have been destroyed because of this very thing, right? My wife hasn't violated any laws, hasn't done anything to do anything to anybody with regards to opioids, yet she has to be on them for the rest of her life because of her injury that she suffered when my youngest daughter was born. Now, she has never failed a drug test. She's never done anything else, but doctors want to wean her and everything else, wean her down, because why? You take too many of these things. 14 fucking years she's been on these damn things, and state medical boards are creating false accusations of impropriety, all of this stuff when she hasn't done a fucking thing wrong, and it all has to do with a false opioid epidemic to bring about a police state, to police to bring about a DEA, justify numbers, be able to get their money for the next fiscal year. That's what it's all about. In truth, that's what it's all about. But the other thing it's low-hanging fruit to justify enforcement actions, to provide the metrics for next year's fiscal year, and also eugenics. You get to deal and eliminate a certain section of the population, the suffering, the ones that can't take it anymore, and they end up blowing their brains out because they just can't live like that, or ends up decimating the family because the family falls apart because it no longer can cope with the unbelievable and unimaginable suffering that takes place.
And even if there was an opioid epidemic, right? You don't punish people who legitimately need opioids.
No, it actually violates more than half of the UN Human Rights Charter. If you read the Human Rights Charter, what we're doing in the United States right now violates over half of it. And I also want to highlight, Scotty, that during World War II, the Jews weren't the only sector of the German populace that were targeted.
Well said.
Disabled people were also targeted.
Yeah, they weren't even the first. You know, it was the gypsies and the disabled. Yeah.
Yeah, they were deemed not worthy of living and allocating state resources to.
Yeah, if I was born in Nazi Germany, I wouldn't be here.
You'd be on Mangala's table getting another head sewn on you.
Yeah, exactly.
No shit. Yeah, I mean,
interesting factoid though. Do you know where the Nazis got their eugenics laws from?
The British.
America. Fuck yeah.
The good old United States of America. They actually copied our eugenics laws.
And where did America get theirs from? Oh, us here in Britain. Yes.
Well, because we've never really stopped being Britain's bitch. There's a little trade secret that nobody wants to talk about here in the United States. So we've never stopped being Britain's bitch. That's just the way it is.
Yep.
They also based a lot of the concentration camps and the ghettos off of what we did to the Native Americans. They saw that and were like, "Hey, that's kind of a nifty thing that we're going to try out over here." You know, they got a lot of inspiration from
talking like this and joking about these kind of topics is what got PewDiePie in hot water in the first place, right? Because he's done a couple of skits with a Nazi uniform on. He went to Fiverr one time and paid them to hold up Nazi signs and stuff like this. The guy's parody, though, he's having a laugh, he's having a joke. And we were talking about this before the show.
I can say what the fuck I want about it. How about that? I have right over. If they want to pull that card, I can pull the ultimate card. My grandmother was a Dutch Jew in a concentration camp. So fuck every SJW or anybody else that wants to try to be like, oh my God, this. Fuck all y'all. Okay? First of all, if you have a legitimate gripe against the nation state of Israel, that's not anti-Semitic. Let's understand something. That has been used for a very long time. There's a famous video of Amy Goodman. She was interviewing, I don't even know if she still does Democracy Now!, but years ago she was interviewing this former Israeli Knesset member, and she was like, yes, we use anti-Semitism as a way to get people to shut up about, any criticism of what the government of Israel does, which that is extremely true. Okay? That happens all the time. So anybody that criticizes, now that I see this being, with Trump too. Oh, if you say anything bad about Israel, Zionism now. If you say anything bad about Zionism, you'd hate the Jews. Let's get something straight.
Did you see that Pompeo? Did you see that clip of Pompeo?
Pompeo, the head of the CIA. Well, yeah, okay.
He was over at AIPAC. He was over at AIPAC talking about how anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and he went on a big spiel about that.
You should talk to Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was like, you don't have to be a Zionist to be, you don't have to be Israeli to be a Zionist. I'm a Zionist. There's video of Biden saying this. Look, Zionism is a political ideology. It's not a religious ideology, and it's whatever you could say. People want to believe in it or whatever. Like, I don't. Again, I have a stake in the game, I guess you could say, and I can tell you, I know what Zionism is, and it's just as bad as being, a neocon or a neoliberal or anything else. None of these political groups give a fuck about the masses. Let's get this straight. They don't care about you. They pretend to. They use you, but they don't care about you or me or your kids or, they don't care about anybody. They don't care about any of us. Okay? They get everybody fighting amongst ourselves. They get everybody arguing over, well, you said this, you must be a Nazi or you must be a white supremacist. No, I've been accused of being a Nazi before, and I've had to explain to people, no, I'm not a Nazi. And then I was told, well, I'm a self-hating Jew, but I'm not a practicing Jew. I'm not a practicing anything. So if I want to speak to whatever the grand architect of this stimulation or whatever life is, right, this experience, our physical bodies are vessels for our souls to experience. right? We're basically the universe experiencing itself in so many different scenarios, right? Everybody needs to get over the bullshit. Step up. Just again, why aliens won't fucking talk to us? Because again, if I was an alien, I'd be like, don't go away, or an interdimensional traveler, whatever the fuck they are. I wouldn't want to go near Earth. We're too dangerous. We're just too effing dangerous as a species right now. And the reason that we're too dangerous is because our evolution, spiritually and mentally and emotionally, has been stunted by people that want to control us. And the only way that they can keep the same level of power and control is for everybody to be subjugated and for them to hold the keys, so to speak. Once everything's even, Steven, then they lose all their power. And who gives a shit about? You think anybody's going to care that takes care of them and like bows and licks their feet and is afraid of them? Do you think they're going to be afraid of them if everyone's equal? No. They don't want that. It's that simple. It's all about control. They're control freaks, and they're bred into this mindset of thinking. You know, Kev, royal family.
Interbred. Yeah, interbred into this mindset. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. You know, don't get me started on the royal family. That's a rant waiting to happen.
I wouldn't want you to get SWAT teams either.
What are you saying,
I don't want him, Prince Charles pees blue. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Queen is a groom of the stool.
Nothing like having 2,000 flushes piss. You know what I mean? It's got to be good.
The name of it's a disease, and I forget the name of it, but it's a real disease, and it comes about because of years of inbreeding in the family. So like that's why Diana was a broodmare. They needed to bring some outside bloodline in, but they don't go too far outside. She wasn't a commoner. She was another royal family member.
She was more royal. You look at her bloodline, and she comes from the Scottish bloodline, the Stuarts. And that's why they needed her. And she was the one that she kind of nicknamed herself the Royal Mare. So what Popeye's saying here is absolutely factually correct. Because of generational inbreeding, you know, things were going wrong, you know, so they had to get somebody to inject fresh DNA back into that bloodline. Now, I know that sounds like absolute Illuminati crazy talk, right? But it's true. This is the way these families work. It's the way they manipulate us.
Dude, why do you think, come on, why do you think they got those two chicks that the boys married?
What was that? I missed that.
Come on. Why do you think they got those two chicks that the boys married? Her sons. The two women, the two new wives.
Meghan Markle
yeah, bro, they're the same thing. They're broodmares.
Yep.
That's exactly what they are. And why else would they? People are like, I can't believe that they allowed him to marry Meghan Markle. Oh, you obviously don't understand anything about how the royal family works, do you? Okay, she was in Hollywood. She was connected. She's obviously got some connection, some lineage somewhere. Okay, and newsflash. The first one, the one that the other one married, the older one, okay, she's not a pauper. I know everyone, oh, she's such a commoner, and the prince fell in love with the commoner. Oh, how sweet. It's Cinderella-esque story. Bullshit. If you research her family bloodline, same thing.
Yeah, she's one of the club. She is one of the club. They all used to go to the same Christmas parties, the same balls. She just happened to be in St. Andrews University when William went there. And her nickname, St. Andrews, of course, the home of golf. 18 holes on a golf course. Kate Middleton's nickname was the 19th hole. Then you go to Meghan Markle, and yeah, she is related to the royal family, because get this, the place where she married Prince William is the same place where King Henry VIII lopped off her ancestor's head, Lord Hussey. Yeah, she's marrying into a family that she's already related to, and they butchered and executed one of her ancestors in the same place that they made her walk up the aisle. That is how sick these bastards are. So don't be thinking Meghan Markle's just somebody off the TV. Oh, she's an actress. You know, William's married outside of the family. Bullshit. Go and look it up. Don't take my word for it. Lord Hussey.
What's the deal with them trying to get the game Fortnite banned?
This is right. Now, this is a story I have brought up. There's good parts to it and there's bad parts to it. Because obviously, right, I mean, kids nowadays probably spending too much time on computer games, okay? But Prince William has come out and he said, we need to ban Fortnite, we need to ban all these computer games. But what he says is because people should be having more physical relationships, we should be having more physical, like, conversations instead of living 24/7, 365 days a year online. So although it seems a bit kind of weird, the headline, Scott, when you start reading into it, it's hard to actually argue with some of the points that he makes.
But do you ban the game?
Exactly.
See,
This
that's
is the thing. This is the thing.
Mechanical bullshit's got to stop.
The
Scott.
road to hell.
Yes.
The road to hell is paved with good intention.
It's just another example of punishing people who maybe, who it comes down to personal responsibility again, and it's not the game's fault. It's not the game developer's fault. It's the people who allow their kids to
Shame
play
on
these
the
games.
parent. What the
Yes.
Well, get this thing, guys. Get this in because this fits in right there, right? You're spot on. I agree with everything you're saying, right? Parental responsibility. Well, I'm glad to see this mother over in the Philippines is taking her responsibility to the next level because mother feeds her video game addicted 13-year-old son. She hand feeds him. He refuses to step away from the screen during a 48-hour gaming session. Look, not making this up. Here's the video here. We'll play it. We'll take a quick look at it. We'll fast forward it a bit, get it to the bit. There we go, look.
My poor child, poor you. See, now if she dropped the atomic elbow on his ass and threw it outside, that'd be different.
It's ridiculous.
Look at
See,
this.
she's enabling him. She needs
that in his face.
I'd rip that computer out of the wall socket and throw that thing and be like, look,
and then put it in the shredder.
You're coming to eat supper and spend a little bit of time with the family, then you can play the computer.
If it becomes that much of an issue, then you have to step in and say enough is enough. And if you don't, then you get what you deserve.
That's called parental responsibility.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's what you're supposed to do as a parent is set your child up for success, not set your child up for failure. But I don't need the government to be doing that for me.
Exactly.
There's no reason the government should be banning shit. And I agree that people should probably get their kids off of the computer and the video games a little bit. Get them,
to some extent.
plugging back into nature and actually like the real world for sure. But you shouldn't be begging the government to create a rule that says X, Y, Z, because that's how they get newsflash. That's how they get people to like go along with passing rules. Okay, say no. That if they just come out and say, well, we're going to ban this, you're going to be like instantaneously. People who have experienced freedom in some sort will be like, no, you're out of your mind. I'm not letting you ban this or take away this right. That doesn't make any sense. They'll fight it. You may get your whatever passed, your ban passed, but there will be a lot of opposition. So how do you avoid all that? Well, you manipulate people into asking you to do exactly what you already planned on doing. And that's what they're doing. That's why, Kev, we used to joke about, they're going to ban knives next in the UK.
Yep.
And now they're fucking doing it.
Yep.
And,
it's crazy.
It was half-hearted joking, but they're actually doing it. They want to ban knives.
Popeye, we both knew we were joking tongue in cheek, but we both knew there was a serious element to that as well. We knew it was coming.
Yes. Unfortunately, it's really unfortunate that we were right. There are times I don't like being right about things. And this was one of those times. I'm not happy that, I wish I could come on air and be like, you know what, we were wrong. Kev and I were completely off. That shit didn't happen. Whoops. Sorry. Shouldn't have said it, or that's what I believed at the time. Unfortunately, I actually have to say, look, we told you so a while ago, and now this is all coming to fruition. And it's not a case of sometimes I come off like an asshole, right? And I may come off like I'm like, I told you so. I don't mean it like that. I'm a little irritated at the whole situation, right? All of the energy and effort that all of us put into it. A lot of us sacrificed a lot of time that we'll never get back. Okay, and in some circumstances, there's people that we sacrifice time with that are gone, that you're not going to get the time back from them, right? So I'm a little annoyed when I see all the sacrifices that all of us made over the years for this, and to see people just throw it away so willy-nilly and get sucked right back in. It's frustrating. It's a 50-50 thing. There's a bit of willful ignorance there, and I know that there is a level of mind control and people buying into the matrix, so to speak. But still, it is frustrating. So when I come out and say something and it sounds like I'm saying it like in a, haha, fuck you way, I don't really mean it like that. There's a lot more behind it, okay? But in reality, it's a little irritating because here's all this shit that we laid out years ago. I mean, we dealt with insults, being called conspiracy cards and everything else, and everything we said is happening. And I didn't say space, somebody from space was going to come down and take over. And, we used to joke around about Hillary Clinton, being Diana from V, right? And we used to joke around about the reptilian theory. And there is, I believe in aliens and stuff and interdimensional travelers. So who the fuck knows? Maybe there are, reptilians and shit in human form. But in all, like, putting all that aside and all kidding aside and everything else, they have really taken what we were. They didn't think we were a threat. And when they realized we were a threat, they actually turned their guns on us. And I think a lot of people weren't prepared for that. And some people, however they were affected or however they were taken out, they were taken out. And then the people that didn't get, the people that I think were, or not even I think, I know, I could see it. The people that were effective got sidelined. And the people that were ineffective and maybe in it for the wrong reasons got promoted. If that's not the algorithm correcting itself, and if that's not the architect of the matrix correcting for the anomaly, then I don't know what is. But it corrected. It finally took us, as a serious threat. And it corrected for it. So we were making headway at one point, but it's frustrating to see all that shit get flushed down the toilet and everybody's arguing over aren't men good or aren't men
it's okay,
bad.
dude.
And
It's
now,
okay. It's okay. I heard Alex Jones the other day saying, the left, they absolutely lied to him about Rex 84. He thought it was a bad conspiracy at the time. But now he wants to see internment camps opened up in the US. There's a place for them.
Of course you do. We'll just use illegal immigration as the
bastard taught me
the
everything I
launch point
knew
for it, right?
That bastard taught me everything I needed to know about politics. They are all in the same club. Do you know how frustrating it is to still listen to InfoWars and watch this?
I can't do it anymore. I just can't.
It's fucking infuriating.
It is. It truly is.
That's why I don't listen to his bullshit, because I haven't listened to him for years, because it's infuriating. Even before he was on the Trump train, it was infuriating because he was lying to people and you could see it. And trying to explain it to people, they'd be like, you're just hating on Alex. No, he's an asshole. And I know on a personal level he's an asshole because I've had dealings with him. He steals. He got to the way he got to the level he did in the quote unquote alternative media by riding everybody else's back.
Well, it all boils down to this, Popeye. You don't get to that level of success by being Mr. Nice Guy, isn't that right?
No, that's why I know Alex has read The Prince by Machiavelli.
Oh, of course he has.
So
of course he has.
If you read that book, you'll understand. It's basically how to, if you want to succeed in politics or business or whatever. And back then, Machiavelli was speaking to princes. So it was, if you want to succeed as a leader or in politics, you have to be bad. You can't be a nice person, and you can't be liked by people.
I know a nice person. I got a nice person right here at Popeye. Scotty, I know you got something to chime in, and you're a nice guy. So go ahead. Popeye's a dick.
Nah, I was just gonna say, we've had all these people that have been sucked back in. You know what I mean? And you got to wonder what percentage of that are people who were just demoralized and decided to be like Cypher in the Matrix and just go back to sleep. You know what I mean?
A lot of them.
I think a lot of them have. I think a lot of these people were just like, you know what, I tried. You know, they don't see any successes. You know what I mean? And then they say, you know what, it's easier to go back to sleep than to continue to fight. So
yeah, it's true. It's true. It's an overwhelming feeling, Scotty. You know, it probably is for a lot of people. But Popeye, I got to tell you, I think you're totally off base. Just cause he's an alcoholic, woman beater, cross country, underwater basket weaver, all this kind of stuff that you hate. Just because he's like that and just because he says he's playing a character.
And don't forget, and just because he keeps tranny porn on his phone.
And just because he keeps tranny porn on his phone doesn't mean that he's not a good guy.
That was a pop-up. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, listen. Hold on. Let me explain something. That video is taken out of context.
Yes, because it's just water. This is just water in my coffee cup, Popeye. Pay no attention to this.
I know it looks like vodka.
It's really not.
But it's not vodka, Joe. I'm not a raging alcoholic.
I'm not a raging alcoholic. No.
That's why I'm always red faced. Because I'm an alcoholic.
I was doing research on the transgender agenda
and on bootlegging,
so I have family. That are special forces, and they were over the other night, and they were telling me all sorts of shit about raiding houses inside the United States and stuff. I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you, I know what's going to happen. And it's like, Alex, if you really knew anybody in the special forces, they wouldn't be telling you any of that. It's called OPSEC. And they would know that they would get their asses handed to them on a fucking platter.
At a minimum.
Right.
At a minimum.
Right. So I don't think they're going to be just telling you any fucking secrets. There's that. Because, you're a loudmouth fucking radio show host. So, there's that.
What the fuck are we looking at?
This is pretty comical. As Popeye's describing Jonesy, we're sitting watching Jonesy playing the gay frog.
You still are wonderful. Okay. Why are they lying about you and saying mean things about you and trying to keep you from the human children's water? After all, you give people such gifts. Why are they doing that, Mr. Atrazine?
Of course, my son. You're absolutely right.
Stop that for a second. Do you hear that? I want everybody to know what the drunk slur sounds like, coming from somebody who was an alcoholic for a long time. I was. Unfortunately, the whole drunken sailor thing, it's all true. It's all true. And one of the things is I can tell when somebody's smashed a mile away. I don't have to see them to know, because I can hear it in their voice.
Let's give him one more chance. Joe, here we go.
Okay, you go ahead and do that, all right? You just get on
and don't be racist against atrazine. Ask any gay frog. It's good to never have any more frogs. It's good for our species to go away, or you're racist.
You think he's trying to do the lisp, or...
no, it's not that. You know what it is? I can hear it. It's the back of the throat. Whenever you're hammered, especially if you're a functional drunk, the back of the throat.
He's a fucking clown, and that's the shit that they use. See, all of the good stuff, like if they tried to create a meme of to make us look like fucking idiots, Alex Jones
is
that bill
one.
because look, the shit he did with Piers Morgan, he had such an opportunity to sit down and debate him
and do so in
level.
a civil fashion.
Even if Piers Morgan tried to not let him, Alex could have been like, Piers, that's a logical fallacy. Stop it. Either engage me with a real argument or don't engage me, because we both know that's bullshit.
Well, what did he do?
He didn't do that. Instead, he turned around and he was like, 1776 will rise again, take our guns, blah, blah, making everybody look like a crazy asshole.
He went total Ric Flair on us. Like, what the fuck, dude? This is your moment. This is your moment, and you fucked it up bad. And to boot, you made me look bad. Get the freaking hell out of here.
I think that was done on purpose.
We've got somebody in the chat room. Nana L. And she makes a good point here, right? Because it doesn't matter what we think of him. Alex woke me up during the election, and I've been researching like crazy since. And that's exactly what you've got to do. Let him wake you up, and then go and do your own thing.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, exactly. You can't have a sense of allegiance to anybody.
Not
And I
anybody,
think
not me, not you, not Popeye, not Scott, nobody.
because this whole thing about tying your identity to politics, tying your identity to a flag, tying your identity to a religion, tying your identity to anything but you is a guaranteed recipe for failure every single freaking time. Every time. It is the grandest deception of them all. It really, truly is. You know, Scotty?
And the thing is that people, you know, they need to take Alex's own advice that he has given to people. He said, "Don't follow me. Don't let me."
Right.
You know, he said that at one point. And so, I mean, yeah, look, Alex is a major factor in waking me up to a lot of things, right? I mean, I watched the police state documentaries, Endgame, all
good stuff. All good stuff.
All good stuff, man. All good stuff. And it just goes back to, you know, these people being sucked in, going back into this left-right paradigm thing. You know, he used to rail against that. And I would have never imagined that Alex would be supporting a president, you know, somebody to be president of the United States, you know, choosing sides.
At the very least, he sold out because he needed to stay relevant, Scott.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it goes back to the kind of the Jim Fetzer thing in a way. You know?
Yeah, but Steve, hold on. There's a difference between the two. Fetzer is nowhere, like, Fetzer believes what he says.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Like, he truly believes that everything's a false.
Like, as much as people want to hate on Fetzer, he believes what he says. I'm not saying it's right? I don't agree with everything. And I can honestly say I've debated Jim. Him and I did a show one time where we didn't talk about conspiracies a little bit, but most of it was about politics. This was when Obama was running for president. Him and I had a debate pretty much for like 2 hours about a whole slew of different issues. And it was an interesting show. Okay. But Jim actually believes what he says. So whether or not he's right or not, totally different story. He actually believes it though. Okay. Alex said shit knowing what he was saying was not distorting it, but not using the proper verbiage to describe it. Okay. So like we come on here. If you've noticed, I've even curbed myself, right? Today, I've said the F word a few times here or there, but nowhere near what, you know, in the ratio of what I normally do. I needed to get it out of my system because I hadn't gotten a chance to be uncensored on air in a while, right? But just like when I did my radio show, when it's time to be serious, I don't need to drop F-bombs or whatever. Sometimes I do to make a point or to bring it home or whatever, so to speak. But it's just the way I speak in real life. Anyone that talks to me off air knows I use the F word like it's one of my favorite words in the English language, right? So to focus on what is going on right now, to bring it all back, okay, I want to focus on something for a second before we forget this. All of the craziness that we see going on, all of it, all part of the agenda, order ab chaos. They are going to create enough chaos that people are going to start asking for shit. And you see it. That's why you see set people going, we want censorship. You didn't see that you just didn't see people calling for censorship when I first started this shit years ago, right? When Bush was the president, you didn't see people calling for censorship. People might say, you know, okay, to a certain degree people did, but not what you see now. You didn't see the quote unquote left side of the false paradigm, right? You didn't see them calling for censorship. They were usually saying, oh my God, we're being censored. If there was calls for censorship, it might be from the far right side, which was usually back then like still kind of like the Bible Belt, so to speak, you know, way of looking at things where people would think like, you know, Southern churchgoer was like a conservative, and then somebody that was outside the box thinker was, you know, left or liberal, right? And now these very same people are calling for a police state on both sides, right? But they're willing to put each other in jail. They're willing to put people that they disagree with in prison. I don't give a shit what tribe you belong to. It's the same mentality. It doesn't. I don't think people realize it. That's why there's a meme where you have like the left, like the Antifa crowd yelling, and you have like the far right, like the white supremacists or whatever the fuck yelling, and then there's a guy in the middle and he's going, kids, relax. You're both shit. That's literally what's going on right now. Like, everybody needs to fucking stop, think, put their hands up, and like block the shit out, push that shit back to the side, to take a step fucking back, and think about what is going on. Think about why you're getting angry at stuff, or why you're getting sucked into a story. They understand back in the day, the news media used to ignore us. They used to not even pay attention to us, right? They used to publish their own propaganda, and then a lot of the alternative media people would rip it apart or show how they're lying. So they adapted, right? So now they've turned the tables to where the alternative media is constantly, almost on a daily basis now, reacting to whatever the mainstream media says, not even to what the president is doing. Doesn't matter, good or bad. And if you are paying attention to it, it's the false orange man good, orange man bad argument. It's nothing real, right? Everybody is busy. Their eyes are not focused on the ball. It's like the shady Uncle Sam figure on the Federal Jack logo with the two puppets. Everyone's paying attention to the mesmerizing puppets again. Everyone's getting sucked back into the left-right paradigm. Everybody needs to just stop for a second. Even if you don't think you're being sucked back into it, you are. Because if you have to go on air, if you're a podcaster and you have to go on air and you have to react to something fucking Rachel Maddow says or does on a daily basis, then you're being sucked in. Your focus is being taken away from somewhere else. That means that's being done for a reason. Okay? They're not targeting you individually and only you. They're targeting people that are waking up. It's a bigger, more mass level of control. They're people that are awake they're engaging in the wrong arguments. They're not even thinking about logical fallacies. I see people all the time misusing the word conspiracy. Like, no one is sticking to the basics. And I know this sounds like I'm being nitpicky, but if you don't stick to the basics, you're not going to be able to win this. You're not going to be able to stay on track. You're going to get sidetracked. You're going to get pulled all over the place while the agenda continues. You're not going to be able to make any difference. And that's how they do it. That's how they do it. People are chasing bullshit. They're chasing red herrings all over the place. People are arguing over stupid, nonsensical bullshit. They are. No one gives a fuck that 9/11 wasn't perpetrated by 19 guys in a cave, and that event was used to change the way everybody thinks about everything. I mean, there are children today that don't know what life was like before 9/11.
They're graduating high school.
Yep.
They're graduating high school.
And they're going to be young adults now that have no idea what it was like before 9/11, before that event happened. They don't remember what life was like.
But they certainly know about these drills, lockdown drills in schools, and dogs going through lockers and things like that. They certainly do that. They know that now. We didn't have that when we were kids, but they certainly know that police state now up front and center, and they don't know any different.
No, it's becoming normalized, right? So just like Yuri Bezmenov, if people want, you can go on YouTube, or if you go to Federal Jack, I have the full video up there, and you can download it too. If I remember correctly, it's under the mind control section in the download archive. But if you go to federaljack.com and just go up in the search thing and type in Yuri Bezmenov or Yuri BEZ, and it should come up. And there's posts I put up there with videos, or go on YouTube and you'll find it. And he talks about the subversion of society and what's going on right now, and how they literally. He explains how it was done in the USSR, and he came over here and he had an interview with G. Edward Griffin, and he explains in this interview how it's being done. And this was back in the 80s, and when you see this interview with G. Edward Griffin and this guy, he's a former KGB agent. When you listen to, he explains it, he breaks it down, how they break down society and get them to do whatever they want, and they control them, and they doesn't matter how grand the society is or how great the people are that are, you know, free thinkers. They have a way of transforming a society into what they want. And they know how to do it. And they've mastered this. And he explains it in 4 steps how they do it. And you see that going on today, right now. Right now, that's going on as we speak. That's what all this shit is. That's why people can't, you know, you have 80 fucking genders and no one knows what bathroom to use anymore. Why are we arguing over stupid shit that we've already established? I mean, think about it. It sounds silly that there's, you know, we make jokes. Oh, there's like 350 genders and I identify as a toaster oven. But why is that a thing?
And why do you have to identify like that?
Right,
It's
exactly.
ridiculous.
Well, because why do you have to have like a label, Joe? Because labels are part of the police state. It's an important part because that's how they can control how society thinks of you, right? Why do you think they love the pejorative term conspiracy theorist? You know, now they're trying to be like conspiracy researchers. That's hate speech. What the fuck is wrong with you people?
Fake news, another label, you know, it's unbelievable.
Exactly. Right, but that's what it's done for, right? You want to look at people and just be like, what is wrong with you? But if you think about it, take a step back, think calmly and logically, and you're like, well, this is all being done on purpose. It's part of the greater agenda. This is all planned, okay? This is not, I know it seems crazy, but it's not. Order ad chaos, order out of chaos. That's their motto. So they create the chaos, as Ike calls it. Problem, reaction, solution, right? The Hegelian dialectic.
What was that? David Icke? You mean David Icke, who's coming on the Kev Baker show on May the 28th? Yes, David Icke. That's the one.
Yes, yes. David Icke. Selfish, shameless self-promotion of Kev's interview.
Well, I know none of yous will do it.
Well, he's a smart individual, right? So David's a very interesting researcher, very interesting individual. Very excited that you're having him on. Well done, Kev. And he kind of coined the term problem, reaction, solution. And years and years and years ago, and he's explained this. And some people try to say, no, that doesn't exist, or that's not a thing. No, it is a thing. Okay, they have an agenda. They know that the general public ain't going to go for it. So they realize that they have to create a boogeyman in order to get the general public and steer them to the conclusion that they want them to have. You know, come help us. Come take away our rights. 9/11. Again, rewind a year, little more than a year before 9/11. Project for a New American Century. Okay, look them up. A quote-unquote think tank that had like 3/4 of the Bush administration were members of this think tank. And they came up with this idea called Rebuilding America's Defense, where they wanted to transform the military from what it was into what you see today. You know, nation hopping, taking we're spreading freedom. Yeah, like the fucking plague, we're spreading freedom. So that was their agenda. They wanted to go out and they wanted to do this. And they said in their white paper, they said, you know what though? General public ain't going to go for this. There's no way that the general public is going to go for this, except if we have a catalyzing, and this is an exact quote, if we have a, quote, catalyzing and catastrophic event like a new Pearl Harbor. And wouldn't you know, about a year later, most of these people are in the Bush administration, and I'll be damned if 9/11 didn't happen. And what did Bush call it on that night? He said, this country's, this generation's Pearl Harbor.
Interesting that you mention, you know, a lot of these people that were in the Bush administration, because now we have guys like John Bolton who are in the Trump administration. So, I mean, you have these same neocons that push the Wolfowitz doctrine, PNAC, all of that stuff. They're back in the game again. You know, they're players on the scene. And, you know, this is something that I have been saying from the very get-go with the whole Trump thing, because everyone's like, you know, Trump's going to drain the swamp. He's going to take on the deep state, you know, and all of this stuff and the rhetoric that you heard, you know, leading up to the election and all of that. And, you know, back when me and Ken Webb were doing our show, I mean, we were hammering this every time. I'm like, look, man, this is what they're going to do. They're going to surround him with neocons. They're going to shape his foreign policy agenda, and they're going to drag him into conflicts or something like that, and push that whole neocon foreign policy agenda. That's never going to stop. That's not going to go away. And lo and behold, where are we at now? I mean, we haven't entered a conflict yet, but I mean, Venezuela's looking a little hot right now, and you have all this rhetoric against Iran. It's the same thing being pushed. It's the same playbook. It's continuing to go on, and people just, like we said, just a lot of people have went back to sleep. It's sad to see,
Well,
It is
boys, we're almost at that time because we've been on for 2 hours. I know we could probably go for another 2 hours.
We're easy another two.
We
Kev.
probably could, but since I have to start in the middle of the night over here in the UK anyway, since I've got this big...
Damn, ouch.
I know. I look at the kind of analytics, and I know most of the viewers are US, Canada. Big shout out to Canada. Down Australia as well. Not many people in the UK have heard of the Kev Baker Show. I have no idea why. Probably because we're all like me in the UK.
You're a bunch of night owls.
But I tell
that's
you
why.
something, folks. One thing I really want people to do is check out Down the Rabbit Hole, Popeye's archives. For all of you who are just new coming into this, like alternative media, and you might only be getting your first exposure to Popeye, this is the guy that's done thousands of shows, and you can thank Popeye for yours truly. And so many other hosts out there, because we all were brought up and we were taught listening to people like Popeye, doing his interviews, people like Joe Joseph as well.
Absolutely.
So Popeye might not be live now, but all of those interviews are timeless, because that's what's produced the guy that you're listening to today. And judging by the chat room, judging by messages I'm getting as well, absolutely every single one of you are blown away by what he's saying. Well, just because he's not live now, don't kind of miss out on all of the good stuff over there. So, Popeye, I've inflated your ego enough. Tell people where to find your work, man.
Well, there's two ways to get you can go to YouTube, right, which is DTRH Radio Archives. But, currently, half of those videos, YouTube is just, taking the audio out. So, if you're on the YouTube channel and you're listening to an episode, or you go to listen to one and it's not working, there's two ways to get the audio for free. You can either go to PopeyeRadio.com, and if for some reason, sometimes we've been having problems with it, interestingly enough, that sometimes people can't get to it for whatever reason, and it's basically just a root directory. Right. But if you can't get to PopeyeRadio.com, then is that Alex Jones? Oh wait, Wrestlemania. Go back. Who's getting their
I
ass
have
kicked?
no
Go back.
idea where that came on. It's been streaming to my
Holy
TV.
crap!
Right.
Holy crap, Kev!
Well, no, I'll
You
probably
want
Kev,
to talk
go
about
back.
you want to talk about getting a strike on the channel?
tell
That's a
me
quick
about
way
it,
to-
dude.
Yeah,
Tell
you're-
me about it.
You're about to get a fucking huge copyright strike, Kev. Just so you know.
Surely I was alright. I was only a
Might need to
couple of
delete
seconds,
that
right?
part.
It was only a couple of
I
seconds.
think you're okay. I
Yeah.
think you're okay, and Popeye was talking over it. So,
Woo!
wow, damn, bro.
Dang, boys, dang. Yep.
Sabotage.
You see, you might not believe this, but in the background while this show's been going on, I've got a 17-year-old and a 45-year-old acting like a 17-year-old watching the wrestling. Yeah. Going
That's
absolutely.
Who's winning?
I'm getting things
Who's
thrown at
winning
me
the
here
fake
and everything,
wrestling
man.
contest?
Holy begolly, there's things getting thrown at me.
Whoa! Kev has
Incoming.
has
Incoming. Nah, Popeye, thank you for today.
Yeah, thanks
Always
for hanging out, boys.
Always brilliant
Yeah.
listening to you. Joe, thank you, because I know you've got work early in the morning. Scotty boy, always thank you, because I know, sitting there for a couple hours speaking to us and speaking to the audience out there might seem easy, but not for everyone. So thank you, Scotty boy. And of course to all of you out there, because me and Scott and Popeye and Joe, we could hang out on Skype anytime. We could talk this way. This is the way we are on and off air.
yeah.
So thank you for coming along and encouraging us to keep coming back every week. And remember, if you want to support the show, there's plenty of ways to do that. check the links in the description. We'll be back, same time, same place, next week. Slightly different. Gonna shift things up a little. The Weekenders are going to the next level, we hope. So until then, folks, keep it real. Join me on KBS tomorrow. Ian Corzine, your YouTube lawyer, your internet lawyer. He's coming on Article 13. What's it all about? Tune in tomorrow to find out. Until then, folks, keep it real.
Oh.